to cause Mr. Alexander's death with her, and that she caused it at this point in time. But the picture tells a different story.
You say that you have memory problems, but it depends on the circumstance, right?
That's right.
And give me the factors. I don't want to know about a specific circumstance. What factors influence your having a memory problem?
Usually when men like you are screaming at me or grilling me, or someone like Travis doing the same.
So that sometimes when a battered woman is attacked and they're defending their life, they don't know when to stop. Travis Alexander's body was stabbed 27 times. It may be that Jodi Arias didn't know when to stop. It could also be, without any agenda, looking at it objectively, couldn't it also be that after everything they went through in that relationship, that she threw him down again, that she did grab for the gun to defend herself, that after that, she simply snapped. She may not know it, but she may very well have snapped.
What a trial. The trial of Jodi Arias. Of course, she was convicted, sentenced to life without the possibility of parole out in Arizona, spared the death penalty, and someone had to defend her, right? That's the foundation of our system of justice. I say it all the time, right? I don't agree with what criminal defense attorneys have to say sometimes. I chose not to do that work, but without criminal defense attorneys who are dedicated to what they do, we have no system here in the United States. And we've got the greatest system in the world. So it works because they are dedicated to what their job is. With that said, joining me tonight in studio, the man who represented Jodi Arias, Kirk Nurmi, with hair.
With hair. I grew it out.
It's unbelievable. All right, before I ask you my first question, I want to remind folks at home who may have missed the trial or it's just been a while, what exactly Jodi Arias said happened. Let's take a listen.
Well, after the gun went off, I thought, crap, because now he's really going to be pissed. I didn't know that I shot him. I thought I shot a hole in the wall or something, and I'm thinking he's really going to be pissed at me now. So now he's telling me he's going to kill me, and I think after he said that, he had almost killed me before, and
And what?
There's a lot of that day that I don't remember. There are a lot of gaps. I don't remember the poses of the pictures. I remember them now that I've seen the pictures, but I didn't remember them until I saw them.
You've told us that he said, "Kill you, bitch," and you were underneath him trying to get away.
He said that right after I broke away from him.
Okay, right after you broke away from him. Once you broke away from him, what do you remember?
Almost nothing for a long time. There are some things that have come back over years, but nothing. I don't know if those are things that I'm thinking of from before or if it's that day. It's confusing. There is like a huge gap. Like, I don't know if I blacked out or what. There's a huge gap. And the most clear memory that I have after that point is driving in the desert.
All right, self-defense was you didn't believe that ridiculous story she told, did you?
I always believed, and as I talk about in my book, that it was a crime of passion. That's what I believed in 2013 anyway. But like you said, defense attorneys have to say certain things. We don't necessarily believe what we're saying, but we have to assert the argument. The client gets to direct the defense. They have that Sixth Amendment right to sit on the stand and tell their story. And our system of justice, which I agree is the greatest one we have, wouldn't work if a defendant got to tell their story with one attorney and not the other. So, yeah, she got to drive her defense. In contrast to what she said, she made the choice, she told her story, and it was my defense team's job to deliver that story.
To deliver it. I mean, as absurd as it was. I mean, it had to be difficult for you. You know, you knew her better than anyone, right? Because you are her attorney for how many years?
Over 5 years, I hate
half
to
a
say.
decade. Okay. Was she as manipulative and as evil as people who follow this case believe she is?
Well, look, I'll let everybody make their own assessment on evil. I think that's a little bit about their,
manipulative.
About their pay grade. Right, but manipulative, certainly. We saw evidence of this throughout the trial, and manipulative facts, and she sued me, and she's manipulating things. So yes, she's a very manipulative woman, no doubt about it.
And how did she try to manipulate you?
Well, I think with a lot of things, with a lot of areas of the defense where
she thinks
wanted
she's
to
the
go.
smartest person in the room wherever she is, doesn't she?
That's probably true. That's probably true. And there's a lot of criminal defendants that fit that, though. They think they're smarter than their lawyers. They know how they're going to get out of this. They know the story. And that's how they work. That's how they operate. You know, there's people in the jail they can talk to. There's different things. And they decide, this is how I'm going to work my story, and this is how I'm going to work my attorney.
Now, this was a defendant, a client like no other, a trial like no other. On February 4th, 2013, she takes the witness stand. I remember because it was my birthday, okay? Happy birthday to me.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah, exactly. So she takes the stand. She's on the stand. She testifies for 18 days. When you called her, did you have any idea that she would be on the stand that long? That's completely unheard of.
That is pretty unheard of, and no, I had no idea. Now, of course, you can't attribute that all to me. Mr. Martinez had
something to do with
several
it.
days too, and then the redirect, right? But no, I mean, I've had serious trials with life in prison at stake that begin and end within 18 days. But Miss Arias found a way to be up there for 18 days.
So what are you thinking as it goes from day, I mean, and it's over the course of like a month. We started in February. I think she got off the stand in March. I mean, that never happens. What are you thinking about, and what are you trying to process as this is happening?
Well, look, the ultimate goal of a trial like that is to save the person's life. So you're hoping that the defendant is some way connecting with the jury, some way seeing him or her as a human being.
Regardless of the fact of whether you like her, she's up there for 18 days, so you're getting to know her. I mean, we learned her life story.
Right.
So did you think that was helping her?
I think, well, I mean, it spared her life, right? I mean, we don't know what exactly did spare her life, right? But we know that, you know, it is a way to humanize someone, whether they like them or not. Because we saw a lot, if you remember the jury questions, right? They were very derogatory, very accusatory.
Oh, yeah.
And they might not have liked her. And that goes back to why I said, you know, 9 out of 10 days you might not like her, but do your objective best to look at the evidence, right? Because I knew the jury didn't like her. But she was still a human being up there instead of just someone sitting at the desk. But of course, ultimately, in this best system in the world, the defendant has the ultimate right whether they testify or not.
And as we watched her on the stand, there were times, especially, you know, she's battling with Juan Martinez. She seems to be enjoying it, smirking at times, making some comments. Do you think she enjoyed the attention, that she enjoyed the spotlight, being able to tell the world her story and then do battle with the evil prosecutor?
I certainly think so. I certainly think she felt like, I mean, we heard her in the clip just beforehand saying no jury was going to convict her, right? So she's along those lines. She has that mindset, and that's what I guess she thought she was portraying on the stand.
Now, you didn't want to represent her, right? I mean, you tried to get off of this case.
I did. I was a public defender in the death penalty unit when I was assigned the case back in 2009.
So you didn't choose her. It just
I didn't choose her.
It was like the lottery that you lost, not won.
Yeah, I got the short straw, I think, right? And in 2011, I kind of saw where the case was going, and I was done with death penalty work. It was very grueling. And I made the motions to withdraw, and Jodi protested. She had lawyers assigned on her behalf. And she
wanted to keep you?
Yes. Yes.
She did not want to break up with Nermi.
That's right. And
why do you think that was?
I think.
Did you guys make some sort of I mean, did you make a connection that she felt like she trusted you, or how did that work? You know, to get inside the mind of Jodi Arias is a muddy, scary place. I don't want to go necessarily, more than I've had to anyway, let's put it that way. But I think she felt like, whatever reason, at that point in time,
that I was the best attorney for her. She'd had other public defenders before. She'd had problems with them. And so she really wanted to keep me. And she got lawyers, independent lawyers, and we, in the spring of 2011, we argued it out in front of the court. And ultimately, I was told to keep the case, even though I was leaving the public.
Do you see the irony in that? In that, the way I saw the case, fatal attraction with Travis Alexander. You know what? No, you're not breaking up with me, Travis. I am going to seek you out. I am going to sneak into your house in the middle of the night. You cannot get rid of me. And then she's doing the same thing with you.
So apply that same logic. Take that out a little bit, Vinny. When we talk about after I'm finally her lawyer, she threatens me. She's going to ruin my career if I don't do exactly what she says. Think about Travis tried to get away from her, what happened to him, and of course, nothing compares to that, right? But then I, as her lawyer, who tried to get away from her, then had 4.5 more years, as fate had out, to deal with her. And like I've said in other interviews, that's when I really think that the stress of that, dealing with her and everything involved in the case, is what brought cancer into my life.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about a whole bunch of other things involving this case. But what's interesting, I just want folks at home to know, I mean, Kirk Nurmi was villainized, and I was probably part of it during the trial. You know, some of the arguments, and you know that you kind of cross the defendant with the defense attorney. But as we're finding out tonight, Kirk Nurmi probably didn't like Jodi Arias that much, right? Just
right, 9 out of 10 days at least, and then
you personally didn't like her, and so I think what we're finding out tonight is a lot. We'll be back with more of our interview with Kirk Nurmi. Very enlightening, folks. He's a nice guy.
Did you, I have to ask you this, did you kill Travis Alexander?
Absolutely not. No, I had no part in it.
Did he have any enemies at all?
To my knowledge, no. He had a strong personality, but he was very well liked and loved. I just can't think of a single soul.
She was arrested for murder and held a press conference at the jail. I mean, because there wasn't just one, there were a bunch of cameras and a bunch of reporters, and she's just answering questions. Unbelievable moment. And one of the reasons why this case was so big, because of the things that Jodi Arias did before the trial even started. Then she was represented by Kirk Nurmi, and there's no way he was going to let an interview like that happen, although Jodi Arias at times, Kirk is with me, she did whatever she wanted to do, didn't she? From time to time. Like,
well, yeah, we certainly saw her do interviews on her own. Like she did an interview between the verdict and while the jury was deliberating her sentencing. She went down to the basement of the courthouse.
And just did it.
Did an interview and said that, blamed her defense on me. It was all my strategy. And then the next day she went on and she did a virtual press conference from the jail. Good Morning America, all that stuff, because she was afraid that her story wasn't getting out there enough, which is ironic because, according to her, it was me who was saying all this stuff. But it was actually, you know, she's sitting there in front of all these cameras making sure her victim story was brought to light to the whole nation.
Unbelievable. Well, let's take another look at your closing argument. This is from the trial, folks, because we have the footage here at Court TV. Kirk Nurmi in the Jodi Arias trial.
The chances for premeditation have gone by the wayside, at least from the pictures we saw this morning. I would submit to you that, in fact, Jodi Arias did drop the camera. We have evidence of a picture of the ceiling. Did drop the camera. That Travis Alexander did berate her for dropping his camera. The camera he was going to take to Cancun. And while we're thinking of Cancun, we didn't hear it from the state yesterday, but this idea about Cancun and how jealous Jodi would be, right? They talked about, listen to the recording on May 10th, they talked about all these trips they were going to take, all these things. And she told you she knew someone else was going. This wasn't a matter of jealousy. Not on her part, anyway. But I would submit to you that she did drop the camera. That Travis Alexander did fly into a rage. The kind of rage and kind of anger you've seen in the text messages and in the recordings. That he did threaten her. and make her feel as if her life was in jeopardy. Because remember, her perspective on this is that of a battered woman.
All right. What's it like first? Because we're covering the Weinstein case now, and the world is watching that. The world was watching this one. What's it like when you're trying a case and you know everyone's watching?
I think one big difference when we talk about this case versus Weinstein case is literally the world is watching in real time during the Jodi Arias case. I mean, it was live streamed. You guys, it was on the air, TV, everywhere, right? And really my strategy is to just focus on the members of the jury, because all those things outside the courtroom that are going on because of the hoopla around the trial, my job was to focus on the jury, what they thought was the only thing that mattered in terms of Miss Arias receiving life or death. That's the only thing that mattered. It didn't matter all the cameras, all the witness being interviewed, everything else. Just focus on the jury, because I couldn't control all that and still run the trial.
No,
it just wouldn't work.
You couldn't control us, Kirk.
No, I could not, especially you.
Yeah. So what impact did all of this have on you? Because this is, I mean, first of all, it's a death penalty case, and it's super intense. And you've got this client, Arias, who was uncontrollable. I'm going to say evil. You're going to say manipulative. What impact did all this have on you personally?
It was very difficult. I mean, keep in mind the trial itself was on TV for about 5 months straight, and I lost my anonymity. And we had our email addresses and office addresses on the pleading, so people could call my office and threaten me. People could threaten me through email. I had to open my gloves or my mail with gloves on because I was getting white powder in the mail. It was all it was really a state of hypervigilance for those months, and I kept thinking, okay, we just got to get through this trial. We just got to get through this trial. And then, of course, in May of 2013, when we're all waiting for that sentencing verdict and we think it's going to come to an end, nope, it doesn't, right? And I'm just in this state of disbelief, because what was supposed to end years ago was now obviously not going to end, as we now know, until 2015.
Yeah, with the appeals and everything. What was your relationship like with Juan Martinez? Or is it like with Juan Martinez? I mean, how much interaction was there after court, before court, off the record, at the local saloon or wherever folks hang out in Maricopa County?
Well, I'm sure if Juan and I were at the local saloon during the trial, you guys would have captured that. But it was professional. There's a lot of people think there's some animosity between us, maybe, because they saw some of that in the courtroom. But there's certainly none on my side of the aisle, anyway.
Did she get a fair trial?
I think so. We're going to find out from the Court of Appeals what they think, and probably pretty darn soon.
And what's life been like now? Post-Arias?
Well, I tell you, post-Arias...
Because you look great, by the way.
Thank you. In April 2015, it was surreal, right? And I'd wanted to build my practice, not do death penalty work anymore. And I stepped away. I took some months off. And in August, when I was about ready to go back to my practice, I found out I had a growth under my lymph node and found out I had stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I knew immediately that diagnosis, that cancer diagnosis, was related to the stress of working with Jodi Arias and everything that involved. And I tell you, I really went into a dark place at that point in time. I was in my late 40s, and I wondered if I really could rebuild my life, if I really wanted to go through chemotherapy. It was a real touchstone moment for me. And I decided to go through with the 6 rounds of chemotherapy with the idea that I had a 70% chance of survival. But I was at that point where, when you have a 70% chance, that sounds great at Vegas, right, if you're making a bet, but it doesn't sound great when it's your life. And so that's when I decided, Miss Arias has it's called a penchant for murdering people's legacies, right? And she had already made up these lies about me that I had let go for so long. So that's why I wrote Trapped with Miss Arias, to impose truth upon Miss Arias' lies, because if that 30% came to pass, I wanted to make sure that the truth was out there.
And that's the reason why we've got the book here, and it's been out for a while. Yeah, I think a lot of folks know about it, Trapped with Miss Arias. So the reason you wrote this book was you didn't know if you were going to be able to survive to tell your side of the story.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I wanted to tell my side of the story. I wanted to make sure the record was set straight as best I could.
Now, I understand that you are now traveling around the country doing a one-man show. Now, explain this to me, because when I hear one-man show, I'm thinking like, Is Kirk Nermy a song and dance man? What are we doing here?
Well, you know what? When the idea was suggested to me, that's exactly what I thought. But I've done a couple different one-man shows, and I'm starting one in Arizona and Glendale now called Overcoming Jodi Arias. And it's a show that talks about the trial and the struggles I went through. But there's also some comedy. I do it in comedy clubs, so there's some, colorful language, I guess we don't say on here, right? And I try to tell the story, but also talking about my cancer, because I know there's so many people that are overcoming cancer and different battles in their lives. So I want to show people, look what I overcame, because I say, I overcame cancer and Jodi Arias. Those are a couple whoppers. So let's, let's have some fun with it. And let's...
Who shows up? Who comes to these shows? I mean, you must talk to people afterwards, right? Some of the audience members?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly people that know me, but, some are true crime fans, and some just kind of, it's a good way to look at things and for people to get a little more insight into what I went through. I want to tell my story because there are so many people out there, like you led this segment off with, that think I believed everything she says. I wanted the case for fame, everything else, when it's far from the truth. And we get, cancel culture, right? I'm vilified, as you talked about that earlier. So I want to kind of start changing that image and let people see who I am, and, so I can begin to live a happy life. I made happiness a priority after I battled cancer. I didn't want to go back to the law to be unhappy again, and to be ever in that situation again.
And leaving the everyday practice of law can make people happy in many different ways. But from your perspective, I mean, you look great, you sound great. You're going to stick around for the next hour.
I am.
Kirk Nermy's going to join us in the think tank tonight.